Billionaire Heir's amazing journey from hidden identity to transformative love after being unmasked as an heir to a pharmaceutical empire. Rain poured relentlessly against the cafe window, the rhythmic pattern nearly drowned out by the hissing steam of the espresso machine. Alex Harper, 27, stood behind the counter, heart racing as he poured a foamy heart into a cup, the steam swirling around him like smoke in the air. The aroma of coffee intertwined with the chill of the storm outside. He welcomed it, a moment of solace amidst the chaos of Brooklyn's busy streets. But even in this sanctuary, Alex couldn't escape the gnawing anxiety lurking beneath the surface, an unease that came with the bitter knowledge that he was still just a barista. Then she walked in. Emma, bright-eyed and radiating ambition, stepped into the cafe, shaking off droplets from her umbrella. She carried the scent of peppermint and determination. As their eyes met, something in Alex sparked. A shared dream flickered like a flame. Their conversation flowed effortlessly. Thoughts about making medications accessible danced between them, igniting a connection he had longed for amidst a city of strangers. With each shared story, his heart swelled. He glimpsed a world where science and compassion coexisted, where someone like him could actually make a difference. But the revelation awaited him. A weighty envelope slid under the door later that afternoon, as dark and ominous as the clouds gathering outside. It felt surreal, the contents echoing in his mind, crushing him under an unexpected revelation. He was the heir to a billion-dollar pharmaceutical empire, a brand synonymous with corporate greed and exploitation. A chill sunk into his bones. The very fabric of his identity was unraveling. He wasn't just Alex, the barista with lofty dreams. He was linked to a legacy of ivory towers that loomed over the less fortunate, and the guilt clawed at him. What was he meant to do with such a truth hanging over him? He wrestled with the paradox of his heritage. On one side, the allure of wealth, but on the other, a truth that felt as vile as it was undeniable. How could he reconcile the boy from humble beginnings with the man whose name could easily become a weapon for the money-hungry? Every night he studied biology, eyes heavy yet fierce in determination. But now those hours felt meaningless against this tidal wave of lineage. He had to decide. Could he really confront the shadows of his family's past and take a stand, or would he risk losing all he fought for? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Alex's heart raced, torn between the warmth he felt with Emma and the cold grip of imminent choices. Shadows of his family loomed larger than ever. The very thought of exposing the scandal brewing in the company, an unethical practice he'd inadvertently stumbled upon, made him feel small. His mind raced with fragmented thoughts, each one louder than the last. He could remain silent, live off the benefits of his past, but that would mean betraying everything he had hoped to build with Emma. Their late-night debates had ignited something within him, a flicker of hope mixed with the turmoil of weighing right against wrong. Just then, the weight of his decision crashed over him. With each beat of the rain against the window, Alex felt the urgency escalate. Turmoil rose within him, threatening to choke the very breath out of his dreams. How could he engage with the love blossoming between them when his identity felt so fundamentally fractured? The storm that swirled outside echoed the storm within him as he stared into the unforgiving reflection of the glass. Merely a barista caught in a deluge of legacy and aspiration. Where could he find peace in a world that demanded clarity? The ground beneath his feet felt less steady with every passing moment, and he faced the impending darkness looming ahead. Would he confront it or succumb? The chaos of his thoughts coalesced into a singular moment of clarity when he remembered the small notebook tucked away in his jacket pocket, his sanctuary of ideas, sketches, and half-formed plans. He pulled it out, the pages soft from wear. each line a testament to his aspirations of becoming more than just a barista. He flipped through it, the words reflecting a different, hopeful identity he had been crafting for himself. Now, the pages felt marred with betrayal and confusion, stifling the dreams he had once nurtured so tenderly. He needed to take action. With a determined exhale, he wrote down the words that echoed in his mind like a mantra. Change is possible. Alex recognized he was standing at a crossroads. The weight of his lineage didn't have to dictate his future. Could he pivot this inherited burden into a force for good? The thought pulled tightly at his core, but it also lit a spark. He could use this disruption in his life not just as an inheritance, but as an opportunity to challenge the institution that had bred so much suffering. Emma's laughter echoed through the cafe, and Alex turned toward the sound, momentarily reassured by her vibrant spirit amidst his gloom. She was full of ideas, constantly talking about healthcare reforms and the necessity for ethics in the industry. The beauty of her passion for social equity stirred something within him, a longing to align his life not just with her, but with a cause that was larger than either of them. A longing to right the wrongs he now knew plagued the empire he was linked to. His fingers tingled with urgency as he jotted down notes for the proposal he had been daydreaming about for weeks now, a non-profit organization that would advocate for affordable medications, a place where he could channel his family's resources toward healing rather than exploiting. It felt radical, yet liberating. The act of writing gave him power, transforming worry into purpose. With each word, he could almost visualize Emma's approving smile and their shared vision coming alive. Bracing himself, Alex slipped into the back office behind the cafe, needing privacy to elucidate his thoughts. Outside, the rain began to subside, mirroring the waning storm in his mind. As he mapped out a rough structure for the nonprofit, a sense of resolve settled like a warm embrace over his heart. But soon, a chilling thought crept in. Would his family allow him to forge this new path? They had thrived on control and profit margins, hardly the benevolent guardians of ethics he aspired to be. He could be met with fierce opposition, both from within the company and from those who would seek to preserve their interests at any cost. The storm inside him roared back to life at the idea of confrontation. The weight of it felt unbearable, yet invigorating. Returning to the cafe, he found Emma engrossed in a conversation with a couple of regulars. Watching her animatedly debate the finer points of reform was a sharp reminder of the life he envisioned. A life together, dedicated not just to individually pawning off their ideas over coffee, but transforming those ideas into reality. Suddenly, the bell jangled as the cafe door swung open, and in walked a figure who made his blood run cold. A representative from his family's company, lurking in the shadows, eyes scanning the room coldly yet determined. This was no ordinary encounter. This was the moment he had dreaded. Instincts kicked in. He needed to confront this challenge now. Alex felt time slip through his fingers, the scales tipping. Would he gamble everything he envisioned for a glimmer of hope against the looming shadows of his family's empire? As he approached, heart racing, he realized he had only one chance to determine the course of his future. The time had come to face the legacy he could no longer ignore. The representative's steely gaze sliced through the warmth of the cafe, drawing Alex's attention. He stood frozen for a moment, as if the air around him had turned to ice. The bustling sounds of the cafe faded, the laughter of customers dissolved into an unrecognizable hum. He felt as though the walls were closing in, the familiar comfort of the cafe turning into a cage. With every deliberate step he took towards the piercing eyes that belonged to a figure of his past, Alex wrestled with the overwhelming wave of fear. The weight of his family's legacy pressed against his chest, a constant reminder of how he was expected to mold himself into their image. Yet each step felt like a new line drawn in his own identity, as if he were reclaiming territory he had once conceded. "Alex," the representative greeted him, voice dripping with a mix of condescension and familiarity. You've been a bit distracted lately, haven't you? His insides twisted. Alex's impulse to retreat battled against the rising tide of anger within him. I'm pursuing my own interests, he responded, forcing the words out past the tightness in his throat. It was a feeble attempt at defiance, and he could hear the ambivalence in his voice, a clash of suppressed resentment and the need for approval that had been so deeply ingrained. Your interests? Is that what we're calling this now? The representative's expression hardened. You know the stakes. We have a reputation to maintain, and little outbursts of idealism won't help our standing, Alex. You're treading into dangerous waters. Dangerous. The word echoed ominously. Yet, within that oppressive environment, Alex felt his resolve begin to solidify. He couldn't always bend to the will of the legacy that loomed over him. What good is a legacy built on profit if it comes at the expense of others? He challenged, surprising even himself with the audacity of his words. This was the confrontation he had been both dreading and yearning for. The weight of his family's expectations hung heavy in the air. Every word felt like a declaration, an assertion of his right to choose his path. Yet, the representative's sharp intake of breath told him he had crossed an invisible threshold. You think you can just walk away? We own your future, the representative scowled, stepping forward. You're a Cohen. Act like it. In that moment, the familiar dread resurfaced, yet it transformed into fierce determination. I want to be more than a Cohen, Alex shot back, heart racing at the admission. The words tasted foreign, but they were liberating, slicing through the fabric of his past. Silence fell between them, thick and palpable. Alex could almost sense the gears turning in the representative's mind, considering the dramatic shift he just witnessed. So you're serious about this non-profit? More than serious. It's a lot more than just a whim, he replied, his voice steadying with conviction. It's about changing lives, not just making money. The representative's eyes narrowed, a flicker of concern almost visible. Preserving the status quo would mean keeping Alex tethered to the past, a challenge he hadn't anticipated. Just remember, stepping out of line has consequences. We won't allow any of this to tarnish our name. As the tension radiated between them, Alex felt something transform within him. He was no longer a mere reflection of his family's ambitions and control. He was carving out his own identity, step by painful step. Then you and I have a lot to discuss, he stated firmly, the fire ignited within him, propelling him forward. He felt a rush of clarity wash over him. This was his moment, not just to confront his family's expectations, but to redefine his very existence. The screen door swung open again with a creak, breaking the tense atmosphere, and in walked Emma, her presence instantly brightening the dim air. She caught sight of Alex locked in confrontation, her expression shifting from curiosity to concern. "Everything okay?" she asked, rushing over. As he locked eyes with her, Alex felt invigorated. This was no longer just about battling a corporate legacy. This was about aligning his own values with actionable change. The future still loomed uncertainly ahead, but perhaps, with Emma by his side, he could navigate through it. Yet, lingering in the back of his mind was the question: what obstacles awaited him on this precarious path to reform, and would he be ready to face them with the same courage he had summoned today? The cafe was now layered with the palpable intensity of both confrontation and revelation. Alex watched as Emma approached, her presence a grounding force in the midst of his emotional turmoil. Her unwavering concern sparked something more within him, an urgency to not only define his identity, but to ignite a change that might resonate beyond his own life. "Things just got complicated," he replied, attempting to mask the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He gestured towards the representative, whose expression now mirrored a blend of arrogance and simmering frustration. "Alex was just sharing a few new interests," the representative retorted, the sarcasm emphasized in his tone. Perhaps you could help him remember the importance of our family name." Emma's gaze shifted to Alex, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. It was clear she had grasped the weight of the situation. The air thickened as her trust in him hung in the balance, intensifying his resolve. "I'm ready to forge my own path," Alex asserted, drawing in a steadying breath. "And it's not going to be under the shadow of expectations that no longer align with who I am." A brief silence engulfed their small corner of the cafe, filled only by the hushed buzz of conversation from nearby tables. Alex could sense the tension radiating from the representative as he calculated his next response. But for the first time, Alex felt empowered instead of overwhelmed. The representative leaned forward, lowering his voice as if they were conspiring. "You think this is a game? Your decisions have repercussions that you can't even begin to fathom. Believe me, turning your back on your legacy can ruin you." The threat lingered ominously, but Alex's newfound clarity silenced the fear that threatened to creep back in. "I'd rather be ruined trying to make a difference than be revered for perpetuating a cycle of greed," he challenged, the fire growing in his gut. Emma's admiration was evident. She nodded, emboldened by his conviction. "You're speaking from your truth, Alex. That's what matters." Suddenly, they were an unlikely alliance, her quiet strength complementing his burgeoning defiance. Only within himself, but in the world around him. With every heartbeat, he envisioned the nonprofit idea taking shape, a beacon of hope emerging from the ashes of expectation. The representative's demeanor shifted, disbelief clouding his features. "What about your responsibilities? You'll disappoint your family. Are you ready for that?" For a fleeting moment, doubt nagged at him. Were the expectations of a lineage truly worth sacrificing his identity? His thoughts raced. Yet, the image of the people he could help stayed resolute in his mind, pushing away the remnants of conformity that had tried to define him. "I've spent too long doing what was expected of me," he confessed, his voice steadying. "Now, it's time for me to create a legacy that aligns with my values. I can't stand by and allow wealth to dictate what's right." A flicker of respect crept into the representative's guarded demeanor, yet it was fleeting. "You're foolish if you think it'll be easy. You'll face backlash like you've never known," he warned, his smug tone punctuated by a condescending smile. "But what you don't see," Alex replied thoughtfully, "is that I'm not afraid of challenges. And if pursuing my ideals means sacrificing the comfort of the past, then so be it." With that declaration, any shred of apprehension from earlier dissipated, replaced by a fierce determination. As he turned to Emma, he could see her eyes glimmering with promise, supportive and eager to embark on this journey alongside him. Yet, deep in his core, a troubling thought crystallized. What if his resolve was met with violent opposition? What if his family took actions to undermine his efforts? The stakes had never been higher, and the path to reform, though invigorating, was treacherous. As they cleared the tension-stricken atmosphere of the cafe, a familiar warmth wrapped around him. With every step towards embracing his truth, he could still feel the looming presence of his family legacy shadowing every move. But now it was met with an unwavering resolve to disrupt the status quo. They exited the cafe, and Alex's heart raced with possibilities, but anxiety intertwined with anticipation. Every decision would test his commitment to this new path, and he had to stay vigilant. The future glittered with opportunity, yet the question relentlessly circled his mind. Was he truly prepared to confront the full weight of what he had just set in motion? The evening sunlight cascaded over the city as Alex and Emma stepped onto the bustling sidewalk, the sounds of honking cars and lively chatter weaving a chaotic yet invigorating tapestry around them. Alex's mind churned with myriad possibilities, each one more daunting than the last. Behind the initial rush of courage lay a stark realization. Breaking away from his family's expectations was only the first step in a much longer journey. "What's the next move?" Emma asked, her tone both curious and supportive. The directness of her question jolted him from his thoughts. He had been so consumed by the confrontation in the cafe that he hadn't formulated a tangible plan beyond the abstract desire to spark change. "I think I need to act decisively, he muttered, the words falling from his lips with less certainty than he wanted. Emma placed a reassuring hand on his arm, grounding him. We can brainstorm together. What do you envision for this nonprofit idea? His heart raced as he pondered what that vision truly meant. I want to create something that addresses social inequalities, maybe a network that provides resources for underprivileged communities, or mentorship for young people who feel trapped by their circumstances, he proposed, the excitement growing but tempered by the daunting reality of such an endeavor. Those are great ideas, Emma encouraged, but how will you manage that? You might need funding, connections, and capabilities you may not even know you have. Those words settled into his mind like stones in a pond, rippling outwards. She was right. Desire wasn't enough. He had to unearth competencies he hadn't tapped into, aspects of himself that had been buried under his family's expectations. What if I get involved in a few local organizations first, see how they operate and learn from them, he suggested, urgency creeping back into his tone. It was one way to gather the experience he desperately needed. A great way to start, Emma affirmed, but you also need to leverage your family name, even if it feels like a betrayal. There's power in it that can help your cause. The thought sent a fresh wave of conflict crashing over him. He had long viewed his family's legacy as a burden, but perhaps there was a way to channel it positively. Would using their resources for good tarnish his newly forged identity? Could he navigate that moral tightrope without losing himself? It's compromise, he began, weighing the options. Use their influence while carving out my own identity. Emma's eyes lit up, as if she sensed the gears turning in his mind. That's brilliant. You can redefine what it means to be part of that family by creating something authentic, a way to show them that the legacy can evolve. The conversation sparked a new energy. Ideas flowed between them. Each suggestion fanned the flames of his ambition. But lingering beneath his eagerness was a gnawing fear of what his family's response would be if he laid out his intentions publicly. The representative's chilling warning echoed in his ears. You'll face backlash like you've never known. In the days that followed, Alex immersed himself in research and networking. He reached out to local nonprofits, attended community meetings, and began to connect with individuals eager to share their insights. Each encounter revealed hidden depths of his own capabilities. He was strategic in conversations, adept at listening, and unexpectedly persuasive when advocating for collaboration. But even as his confidence began to swell, the paradox of his dual existence haunted him. He found himself sitting in meetings, championing ideals he believed in, yet glancing at his phone, half expecting a message of disapproval from his family. Each ringing notification brought with it a rush of anxiety, aware that the family brand was never far behind him, coiling like a serpent's. One night, while poring over his notes in a small public library, he had an epiphany. The emotionless contact with his family had stifled him. They were static, unyielding. He would have to confront them, not in submission, but as an equal. As he drafted a detailed proposal for his nonprofit, a powerful juxtaposition fueled his determination: the fear of irreparable familial disapproval against the hope of opening up a new chapter of his own life. He was teetering on the brink of something transformative, but the fear of betrayal loomed large. Each small success propelled him further down a path he had never envisioned, yet with each step came the oppressive weight of the inevitable confrontation. Tomorrow, he would send that proposal to his family. What would their response be? Would they embrace his vision, or would they suffocate it before it could even begin? In the quiet depths of night, those questions unsettled him, beckoning him to his reckoning. The moment of truth arrived, and with it, a profound choice awaited him. The morning light seeped through his curtains, a gentle reminder that today was not just another day. It was the day Alex had decided to share his vision with his family, an act that felt monumental yet terrifying. The weight of his decision bore down on him, a mix of anticipation and dread that coiled into a knot in his stomach. He had spent the night refining his proposal, pouring into it every ounce of hope, conviction, and self-reflection he could muster. He had structured the proposal meticulously, laying out his mission to support underprivileged youth through mentorship and resources, alongside a plan for operational sustainability. Yet, as he reviewed the document one last time, a familiar sensation washed over him, a flicker of doubt that questioned his capability to pull this off. Was he truly ready to dismantle the expectations he'd been raised under? He called Emma, the only unwavering voice amidst the chaos swirling in his mind. "Emma, I'm about to send it. What if they reject it? What if they reject me?" His voice wavered, a hint of vulnerability breaking through the facade he wore for the world. "Alex, it's not about them. This is your life, your vision. They might surprise you," she replied, calm and steady. She had been his anchor during this tumultuous tide of change, urging him to seek the agency he always had within himself. Gathering a breath, he hit send. Relief surged through him, a brief glimpse of possibility. But almost instantly, the anxiety returned, doubt creeping in like an unwelcome shadow. What would the family response look like? A threat of resistance? An avalanche of familial disapproval? The silence of his phone was deafening. Hours passed, each tick of the clock resonating like a metronome marking the progression of dread. As he went about his day, volunteering at a local organization, he struggled to concentrate. Each interaction with the youths he was determined to help reminded him of his mission's significance, yet the specter of his family loomed, dampening the spark that initially inspired him. By evening, when his phone finally buzzed, Alex nearly dropped it. The message preview displayed his family's name, and his heart quickened. With trembling hands, he opened the message. His parents commended his initiative but advised caution. In a tone that was both condescending and masked concern, they expressed skepticism about his chosen path. The last line crystallized his fears. "We believe in you, but you need to understand the consequences of stepping away from our legacy." An icy pressure settled in his chest. Their words carved out the stark reality he had been trying to escape. The legacy was theirs to control, not his. The disappointment and frustration ignited his core. He threw the phone down, pacing the room. They viewed his desire for independence as naivete, a betrayal of the family brand he had spent years trying to redefine. Did they truly believe he needed to remain tethered to their ideals? Did they not see him standing at a precipice, ready to forge his own path? Each step he took around the room heightened his determination. He pulled out a blank sheet of paper and began scribbling. If they saw him just as their son, he needed to show them he was so much more. He was Alex, a passionate individual equipped with vision and potential. He was no longer willing to curb his ambitions for fear of how it might reflect on the family. The realization crystallized within him. This was not just about the nonprofit or his family's expectations. It was about claiming his identity, the one he had buried under the weight of their approval. Establishing boundaries became the new priority. As he crafted a response to his parents, he laid out his convictions clearly, ready to assert his intentions without apologies. He would no longer allow their legacy to hog his narrative. A risky step indeed, but was he not playing in the realms of transformation now? With a flicker of resolve igniting within him, he hit reply. Just before pressing send, he paused, heart racing, contemplating the imminent confrontation. His next move would not only challenge his family's expectations, but possibly redefine his own trajectory. The moment was ripe with tension as he prepared to bridge the gap between familial loyalty and personal authenticity. What could he gain or lose in the act of standing firm in his newfound identity? The email zipped away into the digital ether, an unseen declaration of independence. But in his heart, he knew this would not be the end, but merely the beginning of a fierce confrontation, the kind that could either forge him anew or shatter his resolve. What awaited him on the other side of this tumultuous response? Would his family's reaction lead him toward the growth he craved, or would it serve as an anchor, dragging him back into the depths of their expectations? The answers hung in the air, tantalizing yet terrifying, waiting to unfold. The days that followed felt swollen with anticipation. Alex navigated through a haze of uncertainty, his mind clattering with the possibilities of his family's response. Each moment plastered in doubts, oversized expectations crammed between fear and desire. Had he truly breached the security of their legacy, or had he simply stepped into a new avenue of liberation? At work, the routine felt like a veil stretching across an abyss. He dealt with mundane tasks mechanically, exchanging pleasantries with colleagues while his mind wandered into the depths of his vision, a nonprofit that stood as a lighthouse for the very youths he had met last week. Each time he brainstormed potential projects, he felt the clarity have a rhythm of its own. But that rhythm was disrupted whenever he glimpsed his phone, heart racing at the thought of another family message. Emma, sensing the unrest, encouraged him to channel his energy. "Take the initiative to connect with people who understand your mission," she proposed. Encouraged, he began attending community meetings, networking with like-minded individuals focused on mentorship and empowerment for children facing adversity. With each conversation, he recognized something profound stirring within him, a determination fueled by unrest. He was hungry for wisdom, eager to learn strategies that could mold his aspirations into tangible realities. The darkness that loomed from his family's expectations transformed into a catalyst for personal exploration. He found environments buzzing with awe-inspiring stories, filled with individuals who had overcome immense adversity. Their tales of resilience mirrored the very reasons he sought to ignite change. Among them was Colette, a seasoned mentor who had turned her own hardships into platforms for success. Their discussions illuminated Alex's path, unveiling layers of ambition he had yet to articulate. "Start small, but think big," Colette advised, confidence flowing from her. She illuminated the subtle shifts that could generate meaningful impact, stressing the importance of strategic thinking and emotional intelligence. People don't just want to be saved, they want to be seen and heard. Make them a part of the solution. He absorbed her words like a sponge, understanding that this was an evolution that transcended the mere notion of helping others. The realization sunk deeper each day. He wasn't just advocating for the youths, he was weaving his identity into something much larger, fortified by authentic experiences and relationships. Yet even amidst these revelations, a throbbing anxiety resided in his chest. His family's opinions loomed as a specter, taunting his progress. Those lauded pillars of power and tradition threatened to rewrite his narrative. Instead of retreating into fear, Alex decided to confront the discomfort head-on. If his family's expectations sought to bind him, the alternative was to embrace the growing stirrings of his identity. After a week, his phone buzzed again, this time from his father, a call rather than the anticipated message. Superficial pleasantries felt transactional, but the undertones crackled with tension. "We need to talk. Your mother is worried." His father's voice crackled over the line, as if he had flicked a switch, igniting a pixelated void. "About what exactly?" Alex replied, adrenaline pumping. "About your decisions, the fallout from stepping away from our legacy. You need to consider how this might affect you and us." "Us?" The word echoed, pinning him to the moment. He wanted to shout that this was about him, who he was, not whom they envisioned he should be. The challenge hung vividly in the air. Was standing firm in his resolve worth the jagged fallout from their disapproval? Could he walk into that conversation with clarity and conviction, armed with new insights about himself? The upcoming meeting with his family loomed ominously like storm clouds ready to burst. Each tick of the clock counted down to what might either centralize him amidst chaos or fracture the bonds of familial loyalty. As his thoughts spiraled, he grappled with growing conviction. The time had come to face not just his family, but himself. What would he ultimately choose when both his past and future clashed in a head-on collision? The night before the meeting with his family, Alex lay awake, thoughts ricocheting relentlessly in his mind. Despite his exhaustion, his body thrummed with restless energy, an unresolved tension sparking beneath his skin. The gravity of the impending confrontation weighed heavily on his chest, every heartbeat echoing with self-doubt and anticipation. He rehearsed what he might say, balancing on the edge of defiance and reconciliation, fighting against the tidal wave of familial expectations crashing against his growing resolve. As dawn broke, a natural light filtered into his room, cutting through the shadows of his uncertainties. This was his moment to carve out his narrative, not just in the eyes of his family, but in his own heart. Breakfast felt like ritualistic foreplay to battle, each forkful reinforcing his determination to seize his truth. He strategically chose his words, hoping to find the right balance, clarity without confrontation, conviction without accusation. Arriving at his parents' grand estate sent a shiver down his spine, the dizzying grandeur resonating with all that he had distanced himself from. Every step toward the front door echoed with memories, boyhood dances under the chandeliers, and family gatherings that felt more like performances than celebrations. He paused, reminding himself of the growth he had ignited, the vision he had begun to embrace. Once inside, the atmosphere felt electric, charged with unspoken tension. His father occupied the corner of the room, like a king surveying his domain, while his mother's anxious fidgeting felt like water churning beneath ice. The conversation commenced casually, but the tension seethed beneath the surface, flaring every time Alex progressed past surface-level pleasantries. "Your mother is concerned about your future. You've worked so hard to reach this point, and now you're talking about throwing it all away." His father's voice boomed, carrying an undertone of authority that had always commanded respect. "I'm not throwing it away," Alex asserted, the certainty in his tone surprising even himself. "This is about me taking charge of my life. I found my calling, and it has less to do with our legacy and more about who I want to be." The silence that followed felt monumental. He watched their faces morph through shock, dismay, and then something almost resembling contemplation. It was as if he had peeled away the layers of armor they wore, revealing not just their reactions, but a glimpse of their own insecurities. "I'm trying to protect you, Alex. You have opportunities that are rare," his mother interjected, her previous anxiety morphing into an escalation of concern. "I know, and I appreciate that," he replied, carefully calibrating his tone to paradoxically soothe and assert. "But I can't just live in this bubble of privilege, expecting it to define me. I want to build something real." As the conversation deepened, Colette's advice echoed in his mind. The need to activate emotional intelligence became paramount as he maneuvered through their apprehensions. He embraced the discomfort, understanding the delicate balance of sharing his vision while inviting them to participate in his growth. He painted pictures of the impact he wanted to create in the lives of those who felt unseen, articulating his aspiration without diminishing their identities. Slowly, the chilling facade that polarized him from his parents began to thaw. They exchanged uneasy glances, their fortress crumbling, revealing fragile emotions beneath their facade of control. There was an awakening, perhaps not complete acceptance, but a recognition of the unfamiliar territory that lay before them, a land forged by Alex's unwavering commitment. However, as the conversation unfolded, there were still pointers of disbelief lingering in the air. The specter of their expectations hovered, casting shadows that could either teach him the necessary lessons or entrap him in a lingering cycle of familial obligation. As the meeting drew to a close, Alex understood this was just the beginning of exploring not just his ambitions, but the dynamics of his identity intertwined with the family legacy. They had opened the door for dialogue. Now it was up to him to shape what lay beyond it. As he departed, a quiet triumph accompanied the chaos within him. The storm clouds may have dispersed, but remnants flickered in the distance. Understanding lingered in the air, a fleeting promise of acceptance. Yet he couldn't shake that nagging question. Their initial reluctance seemed to hint at a buried fear. What if they sought to undermine his mission, to redefine his path back toward their ideal legacy? The future loomed ahead, still muddled but full of potential. His sense of purpose was solidifying, yet the real challenge awaited. The time had come to confront not only his family's expectations, but the overflowing implications they carried. How far would he fight for the life he envisioned if his family's influence became a fraying tether holding him back? As Alex stepped back into the world beyond his parents' estates, the crisp air felt like a refreshing balm against the latent tension still swirling within him. The path he'd walked from his childhood home to his present stood shrouded in uncertainty, yet clarity began to dawn like a gentle sunrise breaking over a foggy horizon. He no longer wavered as he had before, even though the doubts left by the encounter loomed like shadows just beyond reach. His mind replayed segments of the conversation, dissecting every word, every moment, like an analyst scrutinizing a case study. He needed to understand not just his truth, but also their fears. What had seemed a battleground was now emerging as a complex web of connections, threads binding him to two people who required a reevaluation of their own legacies. Behind his parents' concern lay something deeper, a reflection of their achievements intertwined with his identity. What would it mean to confront them again? Alex ruminated over the language of their dialogue, interpreting their reactions not as opposition but as a sign of vulnerability. He recognized that his parents had spent a lifetime cultivating security and achievement, not out of selfishness but from a place of sincere, albeit flawed, protection. Building this bridge could lead to unexpected revelations regarding his own evolving role within the family dynamic. Driven by an urge, he reached for his phone, scrolling through messages until he found Colette. Her unwavering belief in the transformative power of self-discovery had been his anchor through the tide of uncertainty. He shot her a message. "Can we meet soon? I need to talk through some things." Almost immediately, her response came back, suggesting a cafe they frequented, a cozy haven away from the external pressures of their lives. Time felt elastic as he bounced between anticipation and dread during the drive. The cafe was brimming with its usual energy, a warm ambiance buzzing with chatter, yet the comfort of familiar surroundings was lost on him amidst his swirling thoughts. He settled into a corner booth, a momentary escape from reality, allowing himself a deep breath, summoning the resolve he had embraced earlier. When Colette arrived, her presence radiated an inviting calm. "You seem deep in thought," she noted, sliding into the booth across from him. "I'm at a crossroads," he admitted, glancing out the window as strangers moved about, each immersed in their own lives. "I tried to share my truth with my parents about pursuing a path of my own, and it didn't go quite as I envisioned. They're caught between what they want from me and their fear of what I'll become without their framework." "Maybe they're reflecting a part of you that you haven't fully embraced yet," she suggested, tilting her head. "What are you really afraid of? Facing them again?" Her question pierced deeper than he expected. Was it genuinely about their approval, or his fear of disappointing himself by not living fully in his own truth? "Fear has always been the backdrop of their expectations," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "But I need to explore the possibility that I can express my dreams without dismantling their perception of our family legacy." Colette's eyes sparkled with an understanding that ignited something in him. This is about more than just the pressure of legacy. It's about discovering who you want to become beyond their definitions. The conversation unfurled layers of his emotional landscape, and with each passing moment, he felt lighter, as if sorting through clutter from his past. He recalled his days volunteering at a homeless shelter, each connection there a reminder of purpose and of who he aspired to be, rather than what others expected. His mind raced at the possibilities. He could craft a life that acknowledged his past but was not shackled by it. Building bridges would bridge not just a gap with his family, but create paths to futures that could unite ambition and legacy harmoniously. The personal revelation blossomed within him, a quiet confidence declaring that he would face his family again, but on his terms. It wasn't about tearing down the framework, but rather redefining it in a way that honored everyone involved. I want to broker a different understanding with my parents, Alex determined, leaning forward. What if I approach them with a plan, a vision that incorporates their principles while showcasing my direction? Colette nodded, a proud smile edging her features. Now you're crafting your narrative, not just for them, but for you. As they dove into specifics, ideas began to flow, but an encroaching doubt still lingered in his mind. They would need more than just reassurances. They'd need to see him in this new light. Taking a deep breath, he asked himself if he truly had the conviction to steer this ship. Would he be ready to fully expose his new path when family influence loomed large, threatening to sink him back into their ideals? The air felt electric as Alex approached the familiar wooden door of his childhood home once more. He had spent the last several days sketching out ideas and solutions, crafting a definitive proposal designed not only to showcase his vision, but to initiate a dialogue with his family that could forge new connections amid old expectations. Today's meeting was not just about them understanding his intentions. It was his moment to reclaim his narrative and carve out a space where divergent paths could harmonize. His heart thrummed in his chest, no longer quivering under fear, but pulsing with eager anticipation. He had transformed his turmoil into a solid plan, a merger between legacy and purpose that could potentially rewire familial bonds. He was no longer the hesitant heir trapped in a gilded cage. He was Alex Harper, a man ready to mold his destiny and redefine what it meant to be a Cohen. Upon entering the expansive foyer, he was met with the intriguing sense of fresh paint, a sign that old walls were being remodeled. Oh, how fitting it was. Just as this home was being refreshed, so too was he, no longer bound by the shadows of expectation. His parents awaited him in the dining room, and he stepped through the doorway with determination etched across his face. "Alex," his father greeted, a hint of warmth playing about his features. It was a welcoming expression that felt more like an olive branch than the typical authoritative stance. "Thank you for coming." "I'm glad to be here," Alex responded, settling into his seat at the sprawling table. The formality of the occasion hung in the air, yet he could feel the undercurrent shift. The invitation hinted at opportunity. His mother, expression softened by concern, leaned in slightly. "We got your last message and wanted to listen. We don't want to misunderstand your intentions." With a controlled breath, Alex pulled his proposal from his bag and spread the pages before them. The documents detailed the vision of a nonprofit committed to providing resources and mentorship to underserved communities. He spoke passionately about the social inequalities he had witnessed, weaving stories of the youth he hoped to uplift, using his background and connections to forge a new path. Each outline, every statistic, and heartfelt words seemed to resonate with them as they leaned in closer, their skepticism slowly softening like ice under the sun. Alex felt a powerful swell of confidence as he elaborated on how he planned to leverage the family wealth, not to uphold the status quo, but to dismantle barriers to healthcare and education. He chose this moment to highlight the importance of ethics and integrity, elements that had seemingly been overshadowed in the grim pursuit of profit they had clung to for years. "We can be more than just a name in the industry," Alex asserted, noting the gradual shift in their expressions, piquing their interest. "With your support, I can kickstart a project that embodies the values we profess, values of compassion, access, and community." In that moment, he allowed himself to see the intention behind their concern. His drive was touching a part of them that sensed imminent change. His father's sigh, a near imperceptible shift of shoulders, suggested he was wrestling with the fact that this could not only remain Alex's fight, but become theirs too. "Alex, you're chasing ideals that often crumble in reality," his father finally stated, but there was an unfamiliar tone, a mix of challenge and respect. What if this dream fails? And what if it succeeds? Alex countered, heart racing. What if it changes lives? Our work can introduce authenticity back into a legacy we both know feels tarnished. It's time we redefine what it means to be a Cohen. There was a moment of charged silence, the air thick with anticipation, as Alex poised himself, waiting for their reactions. Engagement shifted. His mother's brow furrowed in thought, hands resting against her chin, while his father's eyes twinkled with a flicker of pride. "You're right," his father said, enthusiasm dripping from his words. "It is time for a refresh. We should be the catalyst of change rather than the anchor of tradition." Alex felt as if he had transcended the limitations of his childhood identity, stepping into the expansive room of possibility. The family's tentative acceptance invited vulnerability, a promise that as he grew, so could they, growing together, not in spite of each other, but within the unfolding complexities of their unique identities. As the evening wore on, the conversation flowed like an open channel, moving between dreams and trepidation, plans and promises. They brainstormed next steps, funding sources, connections in the community, ways to merge their legacy with his new initiatives. By the time they wrapped up, there was a shared excitement threading the air, a vibrant tapestry woven from a conversation that offered hope. They redefined their family legacy, deeming the evolution vital as the world around them rippled with stories that needed to be told. Stepping out of their house into the crisp evening air, Alex was buoyed by the sense of accomplishment that enveloped him. He had not only bridged the gap between his past and future, he had secured a place within his family's narrative that allowed for growth, love, and transformation. This was the moment when he truly understood the depth of his journey, the reliance on courage to break boundaries and forge his own identity, while simultaneously inviting his loved ones to grow alongside him. By confronting his fears and sharing his vision, he had earned the recognition he sought, establishing his position not just as an heir to a fortune, but as an architect of change. As Alex glanced upward, his heart was alive with potential, unquenchable ambition swirling within him like a whirlwind. In this cathartic hour, he utterly conquered the shadows, and in doing so, he breathed life back into a legacy yearning for goodwill, a moment he knew would resonate far beyond himself. Now, more than ever, he felt equipped to navigate this unpredictable path ahead. The journey to reform was just beginning, and he was ready to embrace every challenge and opportunity that lay on the road ahead. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that fuel this journey of growth and transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for personal overcoming narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusive chapter and engage with others in the space of self-discovery and ambition. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion about reclaiming identity and forging a new path. Don't wait even one more second. This message needs to reach those ready to break their own chains.